We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek Chof Aleph. This is volume 21. This is the first Sikha for the portion of Bishalach, of Shemos, sorry. The very first Sikha of this volume, starting a new volume 21. It's a Rashi Sikha, and the Pasuk, the Torah describes how the Jewish midwives would not listen to Paroi, and they let the children live. So the pasuk says, "Vayhi ki yora miyaldis eselikim." They feared Hashem, and they didn't listen to Paroi. So the pasuk says that ki yora miyaldis v'yas lahem botim. He made them for them botim. What exactly did he make for them? What exactly this botim? The Rebbe is going to bring down in the first noise the way it appears in the Gemara, and the way it appears in the Sifri, and the way it appears in Rashi. Rashi sort of, even though Rashi writes as it's found in the Gemara and Soita, but Rashi intertwines in his commentary, as the Rebbe will elaborate, from the Pirush of the Gemara and the Pirush of the Sifri, and sort of combines and he changes around, and the Rebbe was going to address all these different details. We'll go step by step. Shemos Aleph. Pasik vayihi ki yoru hamayaldis esolikim. So it was as the midwives, they feared Hashem, they feared God, and they did not listen to Paroi. Vayas lehem botim. So he made for them homes. Botim. What exactly are these botim? Stating Gemara Seita, the Gemara Seita brings down. There's a disagreement between Rav and Shmuel. Chad Omar, one of them said that this refers to homes, not talking about literal homes of Botim, but Bate Kehuna, dynasties of Kohanim, the Leviyah, that of the midwives came out later on, the homes of Kahuna and Leviyah, the dynasty of the Kahuna and the Leviyah. That's one opinion. The Chadomar, and another opinion says, Bate Malchus. That what come out from them was homes of kingdom. Abayis, also figuratively, a dynasty of kings came from them. Who were these Bate Kahuna Leviyah that came from them? So the Gemara explains, Mando Mar Bate Kahuna Leviyah, according to the opinion that these homes that from them came, from the midwives came, the dynasties of the Kohanim and the Leviyah. Who are these Kohanim and Leviyim? That's Aaron and Moshe. Aaron, of course, was the Kohen, and his children were Kohanim. And Moshe and his children were Levim. So the homes that Hashem gave, that we're talking about here, they feared Hashem. Hashem built for them, made for them. Homes means dynasties of Kahuna and Leviyah, which means Moshe and Aaron. That's one opinion, who was the Kohanim and the Levim. The other opinion, Uman Omar Bolte Malchus, and the opinion that says that from them came homes, dynasties of kingdom. That's talking about David. Because David Nami Miriam Ka'osi. Because David also is a descendant from Miriam. And Miriam was one of the midwives. And as such, the homes that she merited was the home of kingdom. That's the language, and that's the idea in the Gemara. In Sifri, in the Sifri werd gesagt, over there it's said, but writes in Sifri, Botim elu eini yedei mahim. I don't know what is these botim. It says Hashem made for them. They feared God, so Hashem made them botim. I don't know what these batim are. Rashi quotes a posik. I mean, Sifri quotes a posik in the Navi Malachim Aleph. Posik says that Miktsei Esrim Shona Asher Bona Shloima Shnei Habotim. It was in the end, 20 years after Shloima built the two homes. What are the two homes that he's referring to? The posik teaches out as Beis Hashem Zukuhuna. He built the house of Hashem in which the Kohanim can serve, and also as Beis HaMelech he built his house. Those are the two homes that Shlomo built. Zu HaMalchus, so that means that that's the kingdom, his home. That was the home of Shlomo, the home of the Melech. So he says, Zochso Yecheved Likuhuno or Miriam LeMalchus. So Yecheved, whose children were from Arim, were Kohanim, they were Zoicha to the Kohuna, to the Beis HaMikdash, the Beis Hashem, and Miriam, she was one of the midwives, and Miriam, who's the other midwife, she married Malchus. That Shlomo Melech came from her, and the building was the building of Malchus. Those are the two buildings, says the Sifri, that the Pasuk says, we made for them these botim. The botim Kahuna, the botim Malchus. So so when you look in these sources, the Pirush Rashi, the Parsha Seinu, we need to understand the Rashi's commentary in our Parsha. He places himself on Vayas Lahem Botim. On the Pasuk, it says, made for them Botim. When it's Mefarish, Rashi explains, Bote Kahuna Ulivia. The homes of Kahuna and Levia. It says Umalchus. And also, Rashi brings down all three. The homes that Hashem built for them was Kahuna, Levia, and Malchus. Shekuruyim Botim. These are all called Botim. Botim, Kahuna, Levia are called Botim. And Rashi brings down, like it says, and we're going to talk about this, but this is like the Loshen is not in the Pasuk. It says, Vayiven, as Beis Hashem, as Beis HaMelech. He built the Beis Hashem and the Beis HaMelech. That's the Pasuk in Malachim. So you see that the Beis Hashem is called the Beis HaMelech. It's called the old Botim. And Rashi explains that the Kahuna Levia is Yecheved. Yecheved was the mother both of Aaron and Moshe. She was one of the midwives. And therefore, from her, from Yecheved, we have Moshe and Aaron, which is the Kohanim and the Leviim. The Kohanim from Aaron and the Leviim from Moshe. Umalchus Miriam, but she also was the mother, Yecheved, of Miriam. I'm sorry, and Miriam was one of the midwives as well, and she was the source for kingdom because we say that Miriam was the ancestor of David. So, and David was the Melucha. So therefore, that's the part that comes with Miriam. And Rashi says, Ki Isam Mesechta Soita, as we find in Mesechta Soita. Was von ein Zeit. So when we look at this Rashi is sort of a combination of this Gemara and Soita and the Sifri. On one hand, Rashi brings Sai Kohuna und Sai Malchus in Sifri. He brings down both Kohuna and Malchus, as brought down in Sifri. Unit wie in Gemara, wo da seinen Deis Shem Machloikes, but not in the Gemara, which these are dissenting opinions. One opinion said that it was Kahuna and Kahuna and Levia, and another opinion says that it was Kahuna and Malchus. Chada Bote Malchus. V'chad Omar Bote Malchus. So here it says that just the idea that it was Bote Malchus. So Rashi brings down the Sifri in which we say both Kahuna and Malchus, as opposed to the Gemara, which these are Deis Mecholokis. The second thing is that their posik as Bes Hashem as Beis HaMelech that Rashi quotes, that's a posik that Rashi brings that is brought down in it's brought down in the Sifri, but it's not brought down, was breaks Sifri, aber nicht in Gemara. That is not brought in the Gemara. So Rashi takes the posik from the that's brought down to free, and he says that it comes from the Gemara. But here, that posik is in the Sifri. Number 3, Rashi says, Zokt Kuhuna or Levia, because in the Sifri, it just talks about, it just mentions over there Kuhuna. Rashi says Kuhuna and Levia, but Kuhuna and Levia, it says, is Miyechaved Umalchus Memiriam. The Sifri, and that's the Sifri says specifically who the midwives were, where they got, and who got the reward from what. But nit wie Gemara, was is nit mefaret von wem Kuhuna und Levia seinen Aris gekommen. The Gemara just says that they get Bata Kuhuna and Levia. It doesn't say which comes from Yechavet and what comes from Miriam. That is nor is mefaret ver Kuhuna Levia Malchus seinen. It just says who was the Kuhuna Levia. That Bata Kuhuna Levia is Aaron and Moshe. Umandomar Bata Malchus David Nami Miriam Kaosi. So over there, like Miriam, it says that Malchus because that comes from Miriam. But when it comes to the Kuhuna Levia, it doesn't say that it came from Yocheved, that it came from so the Kahuna Levia part, the Miriam, the Malchus part, Rashi brings down, that is in the Gemara, Miriam Kosi. But the Kahuna part, it doesn't say, according to the first day in the Gemara, it doesn't say from whom. And Rashi says that it is Aaron and Moshe. And still, notwithstanding these changes, is Rashi Messiah Pirushe Kediisum Mesechta Seita. So Rashi says, like we find in Mesechta Seita, Nit Kediisum Sifri, not like it says in the Sifri. So Rashi seems to be more like the Sifri. Rashi says both together, Kahuna, Levia, and Malchus, which in the Gemara it's 2 opinions, but in the Sifri, it's all together. Rashi brings the pasuk of the Sifri and not the pasuk from the Gemara. And number 3, In the Sifri, it teaches who the Kahuna Leviya, that the Kahuna comes from Yecheved. Rashi doesn't say that. So all these things are more fitting with the Sifri. And Rashi says, like it's in the Gemara. How come? So the first aspect that in the Gemara, there's two opinions. And in Rashi, the Gemara has two opinions, whether Kuna Malchus, Kuna and Levia, or another opinion, also Malchus, and Rashi combines them. So the Rebbe says we can explain that according to the explanation of the Meforshim and the Gemara, that, and we'll see, according to Rashi's view is that the two midwives were Yocheved and Miriam. So based on Rashi's view that it was Yocheved and Miriam, that's why we can include all three, because from Yocheved we have Kuna Leviya, she was one of the midwives, and Miriam was the other midwife, and that's why we have the level of Malchus. As opposed to the Gemara, while there's two opinions, because there is an opinion that the two midwives was Yocheved and her daughter-in-law, Elisheva, Aaron's wife, and not Miriam. So over there, you can't say Malchus in the Gemara, and therefore the Gemara has to say, according to that opinion, that it's just Kuna Leviya, because there's no Malchus there, because it wasn't Miriam, it was Elisheva. Elisheva is not connected to Malchus. But Rashi, who learns that it means Yocheved and Miriam, let's look inside, it could include everybody. Base, Ken and Maris Birzan Bepashtus, the Meshtan Union. So the first idea why Rashi includes Malchus, unlike the Gemara, which is Rashi's source, which has two opinions of Malchus, Alpibura Meforshim, based on the explanation of Meforshim in the Machloikes for Rabbi Shmuel and the Gemara, on the disagreement of Rabbi Shmuel and the Gemara, as he is tolui in der Frier dike Plukte for Rabbi Shmuel and Gemara Dov, that it hinges on the previous disagreement from Rabbi and Shmuel and the Gemara there. Ver di Meyaldis seine Gewen, who these midwives were. Chad Omar, according to one opinion, Isho Bita, that it was a woman and her daughter, that is Yocheved and Miriam. Chad Omar Kalav Chamaisa, and one says it was a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, which was Yocheved and Elisheva. Manda Omar Isho Bita, the one who says a mother and a daughter, which is Yocheved and Miriam. That's Yocheved and a daughter Miriam. Manda Omar Kalav Chamaisa, the one who says a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, it's Yocheved and Elisheva. So loy der deya kalo v'chamaisa, according to the deya that it means mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law is bati kahuna me'elisheva. So then we have to say the bati kahuna is from Elisheva. That's Ishta Shel Aaron. That's Aaron's wife. That's the kahuna. Bati Leviya from Yocheved, and the bati Leviya is from Yocheved because she is Moshe's mother. The Levi come from Yocheved. But according to the Deya, that says it was a mother and her daughter, which is Yocheved and Miriam, main botim botim malchus. Then it could also mean the houses of the kingdom. But the Kahuna Levi from Yocheved, they both come. The Kahuna Levi come from Yocheved. She was the mother both of Moshe and Aaron, so it has the Kuna and the Leviya. But the Malchus from Miriam, because she was the ancestor of David HaMelech, because David HaMelech comes from Miriam. So that's why we have these two opinions. Since Rashi learns, as he already explained earlier, as the Meyaldis Shifra Pura Pua Zayin Yocheved and Miriam. He learns that these midwives, which are Shifra and Pua, the Pasuk says Shifra and Pua, are who? Yocheved and Miriam. According to Rashi, that these are the midwives, as Botim is Botim Kuna Leviya. So Botim is the Kuna Leviya, that's from Yocheved. Botim Malchus, Rashi says, therefore, Kuna Levia and Malchus. Okay, so that's why Rashi can combine them. As Blaim over Shver, Shar Hadiyukim, but the other questions that the Rebbe likes remain. Ubi Iker, and mainly was is Medayik, Kedisa Masechet Soita, that he emphasizes, as we find in Masechet Soita. Afapi, was is Moisiv, the Raya from Posig, was bringt sich in Sifri. Still, Rashi says the Gemara, but he adds the evidence of the Botim because the Posig that brought in Sifri and not in the Gemara. Und sagt euch wie in Sifri, and also he says as in Sifri, as Kahuna is from Yechevet. He says that Kahuna is from Yechevet. Rashi says, not Viloshna Gemara, but Kahuna Levia Aaron Moshe. He says the Kahuna is from Yechevet. Doesn't say but the Kahuna Levia Aaron Moshe. So in the Loshna Gemara, we're talking about the Kahuna Levia Aaron Moshe. And he says that the Kahuna is from Yechevet as the Loshna Sifri. Why does Rashi say this is from the Gemara? And now in Ois Gimel, the Rebbe is going to ask specifically on the proof that Rashi brings from the Sifri, the Posuk of the Sifri, to prove that the B'yas Lahem Botim means the dynasties of Kahuna, Levi, and Malchus, and he proves it from the Posuk, from Beis Hashem, Beis HaMelech. So we are assuming that why are we trying to prove from this Posuk? We're trying to prove the Posuk that a bayis doesn't mean necessarily a structure, a physical house, but it means a dynasty. And for that, Rashi brings the psukim from Melachim Aleph, in which it says that the houses is the house of Hashem, house of the king, which means the dynasty of the Kohuna. The Rebbe is asking, but l'chayra, those psukim actually is talking about physical houses. Why would Rashi bring that pasuk? There's other psukim to prove the idea that abayis doesn't mean physical. Gimel. Euch darf man verstehen. We also need to understand the Raya was Rashi brings from Posik, the proof that Rashi brings from the verse as Beis Hashem, as Beis HaMelech. The house of Hashem and the house of the king. So what is Rashi bringing with this proof? Aleph. Rashi taijdoch. How does Rashi translate? Vayas lohem botim. He made a house. What does it mean, houses? Need botim kipshute, not a literal home, a binyan, a structure, a building. We're talking about houses, meaning dynasties of chulu. Bayis bemuvan from mishpocha. Bayis in the understanding a family of from Kohuna, Levi, or Malchus. I'm saying this means a families of Kohuna, Levi, Malchus. Is doch der Postuk was Rashi brings. So this verse that Rashi is bringing, a Raya Lister, this is a proof to contradict. For Bais Hashem, Beis HaMelech, that Rashi quotes in the Posuk, Zainem Botim Kipshutam, those are literal homes. So why is Rashi bringing that Posuk? We're trying to say that this is not buildings, this is not structures. Those structures of the Beis HaMikdash, the structure of Shlomo's house were physical structures. Base. You say to Mizu, more than this, when gefind andere psukim, we find other verses with the Loshen Bayis gate of them Inyan, where even though it says Bayis, a home, it really talks about the idea of a Bayis Kuhuna V'Levia, meaning a dynasty, a family of Kuhuna V'Levia. As the Pasuk says, Beis Aaron, I mean the house of Aaron means of the family of Aaron, Baruch Hu Hashem. Bless Hashem, it says the pasuk. On Beis HaLevi Baruch Hashem, the family of the Levi. So we see a bias. It's called a family. Should bring that pasuk l'chayra. Was dort meint doch es nit a bias gashmi. There doesn't mean a physical home. Nor bias b'muvon, but it's a bias understood from the mishpacha. It's a family. The mishpacha von Kuhn, the mishpacha von Levi, the family of Kuhn, the family of Levi. That's as far as the Kuhn and Levi. We also find a family of kingdom. Al derech ze gefindt man by Bote Malchus. We also find by the families of Malchus. Yaseh Hashem la'adoini bayis nema. Hashem should make to my master a trustworthy house, or Beis HaMelech Hazinu, the house of the king. Listen, so it's the house is the family of the Melech. Or Shimuno Beis David. Listen, please, the family of David, the home. So that's the house, the kingdom, the family of David. Or another pasuk, Beis David Kelikim. So all Shukim in Zechariah, that the family of David, like God. So what does it mean, Beis David? It means the family. Was in the Allah Erter, main bayis, nit bayis gashmi. In all of these places, bayis means not a physical home, nor bayis means mishpachas hamelach. It means the family of the king. Bayis, it's a family. Hein farvos bring nit Rashi or the psukim. So how come Rashi doesn't bring these verses? Bu bayis meint nit kipshutay. Over there, bayis does not mean literally, nor segeita mishpachas kuhuna mishpachas malchus, but rather it refers to the family, the kuhuna and the malchus. Instead, it brings the pasuk of bayis alikim, where those are physical, bayis malchus, which are physical structures. And another point, Gimel in Rashi Shalafonenu state, the way it's printed in the Rashi that is before us, says the pasuk, it quotes it in a incorrect way. It says by Yivan as Beis Hashem as Beis HaMelech. He built the house of Hashem Beis HaMelech. But the Lashon HaPasuk is obenitazeh. The actual language in the verse is not so. In pasuk state, Kinal, as we quoted earlier, Asher Bona Shloimo as Shnei Habotim. He built the two homes. And then it says, as Beis Hashem, as Beis HaMelech. It doesn't say by Yivan. Shlomo built the two homes, the Beis Hashem, Beis HaMelech. And Rashi quotes it differently. And the Rebbe is going to actually explain on this question in a minute that the quote in the Rashi is wrong, got mixed up, as the Rebbe will explain. Daled. The biur was the explanation of this. The Raya was Rashi brings from Posik as Beis Hashem, as Beis HaMelech. The Rebbe is saying Rashi is not trying to bring a proof over here that a house could mean in the figurative sense and not a literal home. And then the Rebbe's other quotes, the Rebbe suggested other psukim would probably be more appropriate. The Rebbe explains that the reason what Rashi is trying to tell us over here is that when it says just tam vayimelem botim, without saying what it could mean, houses of Kuna, Levi, and Malchus, when it says botim stam. And that's what we need the evidence for. The Raya, was Rashi brings from Posik as Beis Hashem, as Beis HaMelech, the proof that Rashi brings from the verse Beis Hashem, Beis HaMelech, is nicht as der Wort Bayis vergenitzt auf Bote Kuna Ulevia, b'muvon for Mishpachas Kuna Ulevia. It's not that we can use homes of Kahuna and Levia in the context of a family of Kuna Levia. That's not what Rashi is proving. Be by the psukim, Beis Arem, Beis Alevi, Baruch Hashem Gomer, as in those psukim that it's used in the context of a home, even though we're talking about a family, but it's called a bais. In Damaskei Chidush Nishlo, that is no novelty. That's not something new. When Rashi or Tremfreyer Mefarish given, Rashi had already articulated, explained earlier, as bayis meant, talks about the bayis that it means avodavu b'nei beisoi, his servants and his family member. It says that he smit his home so it means the others. It doesn't mean nitnor bayis mamish. It doesn't just mean a home. When it says bayis, that it doesn't mean just literally. Gefind come upon me b'Torah, as you find many times in the Torah. The Raya was Rashi bring though. What is the proof that Rashi is bringing of here of them? As Bishas state the Loshen button stam. Rashi will say when it just doesn't tell you. Pasuk says Vayaslam bottom, but which bottom? Rashi is trying to prove that when it says bottom stam without nit oistaichen dik when welchem biases retzach without interpreting, without articulating, without specifically telling us welchem biases retzach. We don't know which house. It says made houses. Ken dos meinen, that could mean Rashi is wants to prove. Bote kuhuna levio malchus. It means bote kuhuna levio malchus. Rashi is mefmamshich shekuruim botim. They are called botim. Bote kuhuna levio malchus are called botim. In posik, we bring the raya habotim, so that the bayis asher shloimah says habotim, the homes. It just says habotim, doesn't say them, and then we translate it as Beis Hashem, as Beis Hamelech. So you see that the word habatim, when it says botim, Vayaslam botim, that over there, habatim, what botim is Beis Hashem, Beis Hamelech. Even just when you say batim, that could mean that. That's the raya from that pasuk. V'yesh loymar, and the Rebbe says, as Azoy Darzain the Girsa in Rashi, that is actually needs to be the Girsa in the Rashi. Should be Habotim as Beis Hashem. Habotim anshtot vayiven. That instead of the word vayiven, should say Habotim. The word vayiven, Rabbi, this is in Tfusei Rashi, as it's in the printed Rashi, is Atois from Maitik. Is a mistake of the one who quoted it, who copied it. He mistakenly wrote Vayiven instead of what. The Rebbe in the note explains how that mistake took about. We're not just saying a mistake. The Rebbe explains over there with the lines that is made to short how he came from Habotim to Vayiven. So what Rashi is trying to say, the Loshen Botim, just like there it says Shnei Habotim, it says homes. Just like there, and Maus it says botim, stam was the posik lake dorten too, that the posik adds there. It says habotim, and in the posik add touch the posik like oh. Over there, the posik translates is what as this main Beis Hashem as Beis Hamelech. That it's referring to the house of Hashem, the Beis HaMelech. Ubemela, and therefore is moved as the word botim stam. Understand that the word botim, when it's plain, was stated in apostle, which is written in apostle, like in our case, it says Vayas lohem botim, without saying what's botim. Meint euch botik huna levi malchus also means the homes of Huna botik huna levi malchus. Was the far is kein stiren need. That's why this is not contradict. Das was dort meint botim Beis Hashem, Beis HaMelech, botim kipshutim. It doesn't contradict. Over there, the Rebbe asks, over there, it means literally the house of Hashem, the house of the king. They built physical structure, the Beis HaMikdash, and the house for Shlomo HaMelech. Over there, it means literally. But that doesn't bother us because we're not trying to prove whether we can use the word botim, even though we're talking about a physical structure. That's not, we're trying to prove that when it says botim, without saying what kind of botim, it means kahuna and malchus. But though is Rashi not oisen, Rashi is only intent here as botim stam made for kahuna via malchus. That when it just says plain botim, it means kahuna via malchus. Uns ken sein botim kipshuto. Other botim move on For mishpacha, this could mean either literally homes or homes in the context of family, but that's not the issue of what those batim were. But when it's not articulated what kind of batim they are, that it means Huna, Levi, and Malchus. And that's it. Okay. So now we need to understand why Take does Rashi explain, and that's why Rashi is going to say the Yisrael Masechta Soita that I was going to explain, because we have another problem. Why do we actually have to say over here that it doesn't mean literally? Why can't we say that God built for them botim because they earned it for their protection to save them? Why can't we say that God built for them as other Mefarshim, that God built for them families, that they had families, they had homes for themselves? Why do we have to extract and go far away that there's kahuna, levia? Why not more simply? And that's why Rashi says, like it says in the Gemara, and say, let's look inside. Hey, and therefore, the first day, we need to understand what is that hechrech bepshute shel mikra? What is the force in the simple meaning of the pasuk, learning to learn, as its main davke didrai sugi botim, that this means specifically these three categories of homes of botik huna, levia, malchus, homes, dynasties of kahuna, the priesthood, the Levim, and the Malchus, mekendoch lernen, we should be able to learn, as this main botim in allgemein, that this means generally talk about homes. Wie der Teich vom Wort botim umetut, as the translate of botim elsewhere, unkefi kama pirusha batoira, and as many of the Torah commentaries, means generally homes. As Aleph, so what do the general homes mean? What do we talk about? Number one, as the Eibishter Fazei Oivgestalt Botim, the Hashem Ray put up homes Kidei Bashitzun und Atmen ze from Bari, to protect them and to save them from Bari. And Beis, and number two, as Botim domain Bonim, made them home, they gave them children, Mishpachos, gave them families. Und das ist given. So what is the connection? Families. Und das ist given the schar. This was the reward to the meyaldis, to the midwives. Far vatchayenes hayilodim, for saving, giving life to the children. Far zeyer hilf beim Geburt von idische Kinder, for their help by the birth of the Jewish children. Und beim Aufstellen idische Mishpachas, and for raising up Jewish families. But Mazebatzot, Midah connected Midah, they were paid measure for measure, with children, making a mishpachas, and for them raising their own families. So that would be more botim, more simply in the general sense, rather than something which went to Kahuna, Levia, and Malchus. These both interpretation seemingly fit more and more fitting to the literal meaning of the pasuk. Weil, Aleph, number one, der Wort botim verdan geteicht kipshuta. According to the first one, first interpretation that he built a house for protection. So then botim would be translated literally. Other gashmis dikabotim. That's if it's means homes. Even if we say botim means families, other mishpachas, we may gefit become mekoymes b'Torah, families, as we find in many places in the Torah, which is families are called homes. Nit ados is a remez, and not that this is some hint of botik hunu levio malchus, for the homes of the hunu levio malchus dafke. Madavdos Oblan for Sefer Malachim. We need to learn the Sefer Malachim that Batim could mean the Bati Kahuna, Bati Levia Malchus, but this would mean homes, their own homes, their children, their families. Those who Beis and number two, Dos Lechayra Mer Mistaber in Vayas Lahem Batim. He made for them homes. Was his Beloshen offer at that time already. As schön demut hat Fazei gemacht, but in that time already, at that time made homes. So that happened already. Mashenkin loit Pirush Rashi. As opposed to according to Rashi, is doch der Inyan Habotim von Kohuna Levia gekommen lachar Zman, that came later on. And especially Malchus David is gekommen mit Kamater später. The kingdom of David came with many generations later, so this is not then. And here we're saying, Vayas Lahem, he made for them in the past, would be more sense that they made them physical homes then, or gave them families. And that's why Rashi writes, Kidi Isa Bigamar, the Bir Bazeh, the explanation with this is the Pirushim is Rashi Shoilo. Rashi rejects the Pirush, the mitvas Rashi sagt dem Pirush bismiches ubehemshach zum friedigen Posik. Rashi gives this explanation next to and as a follow-up to the previous Posik Pirush, in which it says Vayitev Elikim Lamiyaldis. Vayitev Elikim Lamiyaldis. So this comes a follow-up to that Posik. And Rashi explains, God did good to the Miyaldis. This seems to be an extra favor, something extra good. Just their protection, as the Rebbe suggests, or just their family, that wouldn't be something special for them. Something special for them is this something bigger. So Rashi says, follow the previous pasuk, Pirush Vayit Evelikim Lamiyaldis. So Rashi says, Mahu HaToiva. Says Hashem did good to the Miyaldis. The pasuk says, what is the Toiva? So Rashi says, Vayas Lam Botim. Vayas Lam Botim is the Toiva. The pasuk writes, Vayit Evelikim Layaldis, and then the pasuk says, Vayiki Yora Elikim, Vayiki Yora Miyaldis Elikim, Vayas Lam Botim. So Rashi is explaining that what does it mean? Vayitav Elikim Lamayaldis, Rashi, that is what says in the next pasuk, Vayiki Yoru Elikim Vayaslam Botim, that is the Torah. Unizmaitik oich the Werter Vayas Lohem, that he made for them in this pasuk, Vayitav Elikim, he quotes Vayas Lohem Botim, that it says, not just Botim, it's Vayas Lohem. So, in addition, that Rashi is trying to say that this is not, Yitav Elikim is not something different of the Botim, but this is it. But Rashi's come to say more than that. Was the mit, by Rashi saying, what is the Toiva, the Botim, was the mit kommt nicht nor mefarish sein. Not only is he coming to explain, was der Vayitav bat Tzitzach, that he did good to them. What is it referred to? Because Hashem did good to them. We don't know because it's not right in this pasuk. It's next pasuk. The Balgo state in pasuk Shalacher is that since it says he made them bottom is in the next pasuk that's later on. Nit basmichas to Vayitav, not next to Vayitav. That more than that. Nor euch masbir umachriach sein dem pirush from Vayas lahem bottom. This is coming also to explain and to tell us what forces us to interpret that the Yaslam Botim doesn't mean literal homes or families, because this is Vayitav Elikim. The Eibishter has done them good, done them beyond. If their pasuk would gemeint, if the pasuk would have meant literally, as der Eibishter hat farzei gemacht binyonim, that Hashem made buildings to protect them and to save them. Aleph, so number one, well, dann gestanden der Loschen vayiven lohem botim ukiyotzu, not vayas lohem botim, and that's why Rashi brings the vayas lohem also the word vayasla. Otherwise, you should say he built them if it means literal homes. Beis passt nicht der Inyan from Vayitav. Would not fit this idea that he did good. Was meant that Teuve v'teisefes Inyan. Teuve means it was a favor. This is an additional idea. Nit ashlil. It's not just to protect from a negative, as those in Nitchat and something should not hurt them. It's Vayitav, made good extra. Al derech zeh. And the same thing is, so that's to tell you, if we learn that boti would mean just physical to protect them. Similar, if their pirush is, if the explanation is, that they gave birth to children and they raised families, in was is the chiddush und the teuve to say, so what is the novelty? Why is this a favor for them? Everybody had families. That's the way it was. By all the even before they are the ones that got involved to save them, the Jewish people became fruitful and they multiplied more, very, very much. And so why would it be a tova for them? Hashem did good to them that they had a family. The Rebbe learned Rashi. That's why Rashi learned as botim do meinta spezielle toiva bote kahuna ulvio malchus. That here we're talking about a special toiva, a special favor. Bote kahuna ulvio malchus. Nicht stam haben sie aufgestellt wie alle in Mishpachas. This is not just the ordinary, just like all other Yidden raised families. Not from Zeh sein and Narish gekommen, but from them came out botim. They came out homes. Yeser says Yeser Ois with more force and with more power. Bote Kuhuna Levi and Malchus, the homes of Kuhuna Levi and Malchus. Zion. And that's why Rashi also adds Sechta Soita. Zion. They madgish Zion dem Ila vi Yisrael from them Pirush. In order to emphasize the advantage and the elevation, the greater, this interpretation, that it means the homes of the dynasties of Kunuvi and Malchus is Rashi Metzayin. Rashi therefore references Kidi Isa Mesechta Soita, as we see Mesechta Soita. But this is nicht nor Kidei zu anweisen dem Mocker. This is not merely to point to the source, nor verentferen, but this is coming to answer. The Lechaira, we want to learn that things were done measure for measure. So if we learn that they were protected, or we learn that they had children, you see how it is measure for measure. Because he tried to kill the children, they saved the children, Hashem saved them. He tried to annihilate families, Hashem made their family. But having families of Malchus and Kahuna and Leviah, how does that pay measure for measure? The Lechaira. We understand, according to the above explanation of the other commentators, is the schar vayas lahem botim in gufa inyan. So over there, the reward that Hashem makes for them homes, that reward is in the subject matter itself. Leuten ersten pirish, according to the first interpretation, kidei bashitzun zei from Pari, in order to protect them from Pari, he made them homes. Obvious more, even though according to the second interpretation, as Boti made Zayir Bonim Ushbachas, that means that they have their children, their families. Mida Keneged Mida, canal, measure for measure, they save the other ones, Hashem saves them. Lloyd Pirush Rashi Ober, but according to Rashi's interpretation, as the schar is Botik Hunulvi Malchus, that the reward is families or dynasties of Kunali Malchus, come to is. It turns out that here we're giving a reward on the side, and is nit me'ain Von dem Inyan was the Meyaldes haben getan. It's not part of the subject matters that the midwives did. But Chayenas Haylodim, they gave life to the children, but this is not it. What does it have to do? This is a Malchus and Kuna Levia. And that's why Ches, the Riber Zokt Rashi, Ki the Isim Mesach Tesoita. That's what Rashi is like, we see Mesach Tesoita. Was dorten kommt der Pirush V'inyan Behemshach to their Mishnah, V'sugyus and Gemara. When there, the idea of Botim comes as explanation and the subject following to the Mishnah, V'sugyus and Gemara, and the discussion in the Gemara there. The Gemara says there, B'midah that a measure that a person measures, that is the measure they measure for him. The measure that the person measures, that's the Hashem measures him. In the Inyonim for Midah Keneged Midah was the Mishnah Gemara Lechna in the matters that are measure for measure that is enumerated by the Mishnah Gemara. Sein Koilel they include in Yonei Schar. The Einish, they include matters of reward, so punishment. Kineged, in the Zelber Midah, they correspond in the exact measure for Jeden Prat, for Maisa Hodom, in every detail of what the person does. That every detail that the person does expresses itself in the measure that he gets paid. Umidem werd move on der Yisrael in dem Pirush, and with that we understand the advantage of the explanation. Botik Kahuna Levio Malchus, the families of Kahuna Levio Malchus. Das bringt Arois. This brings out nit nor dem Goitel Haschar. That is not only that this is such a great reward, nor beike mainly vidos is midah keneged midah. This is measure for measure b'chol haprotim. In all the details, neged the protim v'zer to correspond to the details of their action. The pe'ula from the meyaldis in them was vatchayenas ha'ilodim. The act in the meyaldis that they gave life to the children is given was nit nor was dos. It's not only that they helped us as own that Jewish families will be raised, nor durch them hat sich aufgestellt der Reif oder ganze der jetzt Mitzrayim. They're not helping just families, but they basically raised the majority or the entire generation, those who left Egypt. From Bemen, Sekumta Rois, der ganze Am Yisrael Kel Haderis, from which the entire Jewish people, the nation, to all the generations. Und der Riber is der Schar beoifen, the Midah Keneged Midah. And that's why the reward, in a way of measure for measure, will be proteus and very detailed. Nicht das, was sie haben, it's not that they had families, children and families, or that azay, or that they had kinder kahanim levim melachim, that they had children, they had children. It's not what they had, but they built botik hunu levio malchus. Those homes of hunu levio malchus, the botim yuchodim. Those are these unique, special homes. Yes, with more power, more force. Should be Yisrael in Yidden until all the end of generations. They built up these dynasties and this home forever. Mashenkin in Sifri, as opposed to that's what we're not using who they gave birth to, but that these were the structures. In Sifri, Chotshech dorten steht Zochso Yechevet le Kohuna or Miriam Malchus. Over there, we also say Yocheved merited the Kohuna and Miriam merited Malchus. Kumt aber der Inyan in Sifri, but it's not like in Rashi. But there in Sifri it comes als number one, Araya as kol hamikarev atzmei min hashamayim. But there it says anybody who karev atzmei, if you make yourself close, min hashamayim mekarev minaysei. So then from the heavens they will be mekarev you. So what Yechevet merited comes to express the fact that Yechevet and Miriam wanted to become close. It's neat als midah keneged midah b'diuk b'protei midah. That's not the measure for measure, precisely the details of the midah, what you accomplished. Nor if there tnu klolis over there, we're talking about the general move. You're moving to Hashem. From sich bekarev sein zum Ebersten, from you to come close to Hashem. Was is do bei alle peules toives? That's really in all good actions you are coming close to Hashem. As bringt in der dort in Sifri, as he brings in the Sifri there, and we give it become a mekoimis. You found it in different places. Al shekirva es atzmo kach kirva mokim. For she made herself close, the Eibishter made her close too. So basically, it's a general midah keneged midah, not in the specific what you've accomplished. Beit is nit als inyan from Beis Yisrael alid. It's not as a matter of Beis Yisrael as for all Jews. Und der Riber steht dort nicht Potei Kahuna und Malchus. And that's why over there it doesn't say that in the Sifri, the Botei Kahuna Malchus as a dynasties of the Kahuna Malchus, because we're not talking about dort retzich nit, over there they're not discussing Begen Botim Bi Yisrael, homes amongst Israel, what they built, the dynasty Bischar Zeh was durch Zeh is eingestellt geworden called Beis Yisrael as a reward that through them the entire home of Israel was built. So that is the one thing that the Rebbe brings down from the Gemara, is the specifics that here they impacted all Jewish people and they got to reward something big, which is all Jewish people, the dynasties of Kuna, Levi, and Malchus for a generation. And the Rebbe is going to say another point that is answered through Kidis and Masechta Soita Tes. And we can say, as mit Kidisum and Masechta Soita wird verantwortet noch a Shail in Pirush Rashi, that another question that Rashi is answered. Because it almost seems like the reward should be for the Yiras Hashem. Vahiki yoru alikim amialz alikim, and they didn't listen to Parah. So it should be a payment for the Yira, not a payment for the accomplishment. As cholas kosuv is doch vahiki yoru amialdis asolikim. The Basi begins that when the midwife feared Hashem. Darf man lernen, so we should learn, as the schar vayas lahem botim, that the reward that he made for them, these homes, is of them was Yores Alikim, comes because they feared Alikim. Aber der schar of them gefindt man in Medrash got another. The reward for fearing Hashem is something totally different. The Medrash says for fearing Hashem, they got Torah, they got Moshe. Got another. It says, Vayitev Elikim, Chulu, Hadod Iksiv. This is what it says. Mau Schar Hayira Torah. What is the reward for their fear? Vayira Elikim, Vayiru, they get Torah. Because Yechevet feared, because Hashem, he raised from her Moshe, Shekosu Boi, Kitoivu, by Moshe, that he's good. The nitna Torah al yodei shenikras lekach Torah, and the Torah was given to Moshe, which is called the lekach Torah. She merited the year gave her Moshe that gave us the Torah, which is Tov. He is called Tov. He gave us the Torah, which is Tov lekach Tov, and the Torah of Nikras al Shemoi. Torah is called on Moshe's name. Shnema Zichru Torah Moshe Avdi. We call it Moshe's Torah. Miriam Yotze Mimenu, and Miriam, from her comes Betzalel, the schus of her fear of Hashem. Yochevet's fear of Hashem gave her Moshe, and Miriam's fear of Hashem gave her Betzalel. Shoyamol Chochma, he was full with wisdom. Diksiv, Ba'amali Oiser Ruach Elikim, I filled him with the Spirit of God. V'also Aron LaTorah. He too connection with Torah. This schus, he made an Aron of Torah. So, is it seems like in the simple meaning of the pasuk, this is more fitting. V'shayches to vayihi ki yoram yaldis asalikim. Those rewards for fearing the yaldis asalikim is Torah, because what is Torah? Torah is a level of yiras Hashem. Warum der Inyan HaTorah is doch to pay back for Yorali Yaldus Elikim. The Inyan HaTorah is doch Vayitzavenu Hashem Lasis as Kol HaChukim Ha'ela Liyiras Hashem Elikeinu. Hashem told us to do all these statues in order to fear Hashem Elikeinu. Was das is Ascharach Schinaila was durch Moshe Irzun or der Eibishter gegeben Torah Yisrael. This is a tremendous reward that through her son, the Eibishter gave Torah to the Yidden. So that would be a big reward, that the idea that her Yiras Shemayim brought the Torah, which brings Yiras Hashem Elikeinu. Only if it's darf man nicht ankommen zum Lernen. And then we don't have to learn as the Vayitav Elikim Lam Yaldis, that when Hashem did good to them, gate of them was sustained that it goes in what the end of the next pasuk, the bottom. This is Vayitav Elikim doesn't have to go there. We can learn it. Hashem gave them a son like Moshe Rabbeinu, or gave Miriam a son like Betzalel. Virashi learned. Rashi learns it goes on the bottom. Now the schar is if them was state bas cholos kosuv zeh. The reward when Hashem did good for them is goes what it says in the beginning. Ki yorom yaldis holikim. So the Eibishter did good to them by giving them such children. Und das wird verändert. This is answered. We see in Lashon Rashi in the end of Rashi's language. Ki the Isa b'msechas Soita. Und das wird verändert. B'siyum Lashon Rashi. The Rashi concludes the Pirush ki the Isa b'Masechta Soita, like we find Masechta Soita. Yud. How so? Rebbe explains that in Masechta Soita it talks about the midah connected midah is not in the emotional feeling of the person, but rather in the practical, in the action, what you have accomplished. Yud, in the Mishnah, Vesugya Masechta Soita, in the Mishnah and the discussion, the Gemara in Taktet Soita, it's explained that the inyan from midah connected midah, when it explains the measure for measure, nit connected the regesh v'kavonos odom, not to correspond to the feeling and the intention of the person. Nor connected zamaisa bepoil, but to correspond his action in actuality. And that inyan is mudgesh in pshute shel mikra, and that aspect is emphasized in the simple meaning of the pasuk. Rashi had Arab gebracht this idea that is the Maise B'Poil. Rashi had already brought down Frier, B'Pirush ala Torah in his commentary on the Torah. The Inyan from Mida Keneged Mida Maise B'Poil. The measure for measure in actual action. Heim Chotu Berabes Roa Sa'om. The pasuk by the Mabul says that they sinned because Rabba Roa Sa'om, the nation was Rabba, Rabba. They got mad, they got punished with time Rabba. And the Riber, and therefore is up Pipshuta Shamikra Muvum. And the simple meaning of the pasuk understood as the Hatove under Schardo, that the benefit and the reward here is not as they feel farzeir kavona umachshava. It's not so much for what they intended or what they thought was yoru es olikim, that they prayed, they were fear of Hashem, nor be iker farzeir meisim bepoil, mainly for what they actually did. Zaynik miyaldis, because they were midwives. Shifra shemeshaperes as of Vlad. Shifra was called because she would make improve the baby. Pua is shepoyim medaberes v'hoigilulad, that she would speak and talk and comfort the baby. And they revived, gave life to these children. Helfen Oishtal Botum be Yisrael. They helped to raise homes in Israel. Bis kol beis Yisrael, to all of the house of Israel. Is if them is their schar. So for that the reward, not so much that Yocheved had a son, but the Torah was given through him. And also similar Miriam for giving birth to Betzalel. But das is not kein bias. That's not a home. Das is nicht nimshach geworden zu Zarei. This has not been extended to his seed and his children's children. He gave it over later to Yeshua, so it didn't stay. But rather the idea of the homes of Kunal Vio Malchus. And the Rebbe is going to say now that the difference between the three commentaries, the way it's in the Gemara, the way it's in the Medrash, and the way it's in the Sifri, and the way it's in Rashi, each one is going according to its style, and that's how they explain the Batim. Here we also see how all aspects of the Torah that are totally precise and particular. Although the above matter to was Yocheved Miriam haben Zeiche gewählt, that what Yocheved and Miriam merited is an inyan from Agode V'Drosh. This is a Agode and an expounding Zetman over dem Chilik Shabazei in the Mekoros, and how we see the difference in the Agode, in the Drush, in what they got, in the way it comes out in the sources. Vidos is in Pirush Rashi and Gemara, the way it's in Rashi in the Gemara. Vidos is in Medrash, as it's in the Medrash. Vidos is in Sifri, and how it is in the Sifri. As the Chilik is behesem to the Klolim v'Gedorim, that the differences fits to the rules and the definitions from the Mechelik Batoira V'Derinyan state to the portion of the Torah in which that matter is brought down. In Medrash, was is Drash v'Agoda shebetoira, in the Medrash, which is the expounding in the Agoda of Torah, oifosmen zokt, about which it is said, Moishkim libo shel odom, k'Agoda, they pull the person's heart like Agoda, which is midos shebelev, the emotion of the heart that represents, brings to Yira Shamayim and brings to fear of heaven, is there Iker Maila v'Hadgosha, the main advantage and the main emphasis. Das was Yora Meyaldis as Holikim, the fact that the Meyaldis feared Hashem. Und the river is dort Mudgesh der Schar, and that's why over there the reward, what is emphasized? Maus Schara Yira, Teirachul. What is the reward for Yira, for fearing Hashem? Teirach. Is Sifri over, but in the Sifri was his Beker Halachas, mainly Halachas. Verbundum mit Meise, as it's connected to action. Halacha is the way we should do. Is the schar an initial maisa? The reward is a matter of maisa. Kuhuna umalchus leneged zeyer maisa. They get kuhuna and malchus to correspond to their action. The hadgoshe is maisa. Take, the emphasis is maisa. Is over niet der inyan proti from the rasiya protis. But we're not dealing and the reward as the specific matter for what they specifically did. Nor der tzada shove mit andere maisim, but rather the common denominator with other things. Mekarev atzmai, you make yourself close, folded the neighbors to listen to Hashem. But when Pirush Rashi Pshuta Shal Bukra, but Rashi's commentary, which is the simple meaning of the verse, was his Farbundu Mitasiya Mamish, that is connected with actual doing. Balderech Zeh, the Pirush Aksum Gemara, similar also when the Gemara, even though it's in the Gemara, but the interpretation of the verses was Kama v'Kama Mehem Zainin Al Derech HaPshat. Many of them are in the order of Pshat. The Geret Kamapam has spoken many times. Herzich on, there you sense, as loy hamedresh iker al ha'maisa. It's not the expounding, but the maisa. The maisa bepoyo, the actual action. But in them is in yeder maisa negeya. So then, in every action, what's important? Nit lo is the tzada shova for all maisim toiv, not just a common denominator from all good actions. But the toichen proti from their asiya protis, but rather the specific contents from that particular doing. Mahot oivgiton mit der maisa, and how you accomplish with the action. Specifically with it, the riber is do negeya der schar. Over here, it's important the reward from boti kuhuna levia malchus botim, houses, dynasties in malchus, verbunden euch, and also connected with this Beis Hashem. There's Beis HaMelech, and also talking about the actual house of Hashem and Beis HaMelech, botin kipshute begashmis, literal home, physical homes. Because their main advantage and what the novelty is given, those was aufgestellt is that which they have raised and what they gave life. Lebedik gemacht botim b'Yisrael. They brought about life to homes in Israel. Kenal Barucha said earlier at last. Yud Beis. So here we see the lesson is that it's not the most important thing is the action, what results from it, not so much the Yiras Shamayim, but it's the Yiras Shamayim that brings about to the raising of a generation, of a new generation. So we sit in that Taris, Ayron Niflo, we take out a very beautiful Ayron. Let it be so. It would seem, as the Rinyan was Moshe is given, there was nit no Torah al Yodei, that he was the one that the Torah was given through him, is nit ke mido keneged mido, that would not be a measure for measure, schar for Yechev de Miriam, the reward for Yechev de Miriam. Das ist doch before the größte schar was we can have, but this still seems to be the greatest reward that you can have. To have somebody like Moshe Rabbeinu who gave brothers the Torah. Is mando madgish. So here we emphasize as a Sidon Chagreser, there's even a bigger reward. Unachas for a Yiddish mama and a nachas for a Jewish mother. Botik Kuhuna Levia Malchus. Homes of Kuhuna Levia Malchus. Nit azoi was yehot azun, was is as a great lam. Not so much that she has a son who is a great scholar, Boki Ek, proficient, chorif and sharp, yitzibay. Not this Oifstam, but to be Israel, but rather to stand up, raise homes in Israel. Botik Kuhuna Levia Malchus, Kuhuna Levia Malchus, those homes, dynasties, Yiddische Kinder und Kitzkinder, Jewish children and grandchildren, Talmidim students and Talmidi Talmidim and students. Helfen Eden zu bauen Yiddische Heim, and to help Jews to build Jewish homes. Durch Poilun of Yeder and alle Yiddische Kinder, by impacting for each and all Jewish children. As that they should participate in the Ranhoga from Kuhuna Levia Malchus, in the conduct of Kuhuna Levia Malchus. That is to raise a generation that they become part of those botim. Because in Yonim Beruchnis is, what does it mean spiritually? Not everybody can be a Kohen or a Levi or Malchus. Is Choch, as Beklolos, generally speaking, is Sai Kohanim, Sai Levinim in Yonim. What is generally a kohen and a Levi is it's to be distinguished, separated, to stand before Hashem, to serve and to be an Eved of Hashem. Zera Levi Kuloi moved the Lavedis HaMikdash, that the seed of Levi entirely is separated to serve in the Mikdash. Is Iker Havdolah by Kahanim. So what is the main distinction of Kahanim? Was it two on the Avodas HaKarbonis u'Ketoides Bebeis HaMikdash, that they do the service, the Karbonis, the Ketoides, the incense in the Beis HaMikdash. Wie das drückt sich aus in dem, was a Kohen Torah sich nicht metame sein. And that expresses itself that a Kohen is not permitted to become Tomei. Tomei Torah is getting a Chutz La'aretz, not allowed to leave into Chutz La'aretz. Was by Levi is Nitoder Isur. By Levi there does not exist that Isur. Chutz La'aretz is Avira Tomei, Gush Tomei, can't go to Chutz, was by Levi until. But Vedas Hashem B'kol Echad B'echad Mi'Yisrael. So, meaning that Kohanim Taka have that distinction, but the Levi does not have. When we say being like the Levi, he doesn't have this. How does this interpret it in the service of each one of the Jewish people? Is Inyan HaKahuna, the idea of Kahuna, the Prishus V'Havdalah from Yon Eilim, that represents the separation and staying away from worldly matters. To be cleaving and connecting to godliness. A Levi, on the other hand, he goes out to Chutz La'aretz, even to a cemetery. This haste in Yonei, a Levi is b'chol ma'asecha v'drachecha. He does all the actions, other things. Is was arbet macht iber. So what he works and what he changes over, afila zayidin, even such a yid was gefindt sich mechutz Yerushalayim, mechutz Yisrael. Somebody who finds himself outside the Yerushalayim, outside Israel. And his chutz la'aretz bis in adarek from Isakvoris. The person can be outside of Israel to the extent he's like in a cemetery. Hepech HaChaim. The opposite of life. The Levi revives him. Also him, Shem should be his portion and his inheritance forever. Just as the Kohanim Leviim. Aber. But a Levi is not independent. A Levi is verbunden mit Kohanim. He is still connected with the Kohanim. They will go along with you and they will serve you. With the service of the Mikdash and with the holy place. The B'meila is moving. And therefore it's understood as euch zeir Wirkung, that also their impact is nicht as so viel in Welt. Not so much in the world. Dem Ort wo Levi in the Griechen hat a gewisse Sheiches to Mikdash und Kedusha. It still has some sort of a connection wherever the Levim reach to Mikdash and Kedusha, because they're secondary to the Kohanim. They are serving the Kohanim. The Tachlis HaKavon is Ober, but the ultimate goal is Ober to point the Melucha Memshola for the Meibishten to impact Hashem's kingdom and dominance of Hashem in the whole world. Bote Malchus. It should be Malchus. So not the Kohen and the Levi, but just about Malchus. And this is the Emeser Nachas V'Sayidisha Mamahot. This is the true Nachas that a Jewish mother has when she stelter in Botim, when she raises homes, Deures for Yiddish Kinder, generation of Jewish children, which conduct themselves with B'chinas Kohuna, Levia, and Malchus. Kohuna, Levia, and Malchus. Damos gain a race. Alle Tzivas Hashem, then all the armies of Hashem go out from Golus Zahachron, from this last Golus. This is given in Mitzrayim, as it was in Egypt, as Yotzu called Tzivas Hashem. All the armies of Hashem went out. Was ein Neugestalt geworden von dem Yaldas HaIvrius that were raised by the Jewish midwives, Eretz Mitzrayim, from the land of Egypt, Uberosham, headed by Moshe, by Hibi Shurun Melech, by the Yin, there was the Melech, that's Moshe, Aaron, the Kohen, the Shiftom, Shevet Levi. By Hibi Shurun Melech, it's the Aaron, the Kohen, and the Shiftom, the Shevet Levi, Aaron, the Shevet, on Yotzim Biadromo, and they go out with an upraised hand. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Shemos, Shabbos Parshas Vayira, Tovshin Lamed.